we watch the progress that the firefighters are making, and I've been watching so many of them throughout the day, they've been working tirelessly, exchanging, taking breaks where possible. They feel guilty, most of them, even for coming out to take those breaks. We have to remember the lives of the 3 firefighters who were lost in this fire. What do you have to say to their families tonight who are having to deal with that loss?
We can only say condolences to the families of those who have lost their loved ones. The Gauteng provincial government is very sad that we have lost these 3 lives of these heroic South Africans who have sacrificed their lives for the sake of others and for the sake of public property. There isn't any price worth the life that they have put into work that they have done, and we are very, 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 very sad about losing this kind of heroic South Africans that have really done a heroic work, as it is just evident before us. This was not a small job. This was a massive job. It has taken 32 hours for the might of the entire state, metropolitan city of Johannesburg, reinforced by Ekurhuleni municipality, the city of Tshwane, and the Premier this morning requested the Minister of Defense to come and assist. And that's the reason why the defense also came here. And that combined force of the state have actually given us the results that we are now seeing. We are happy that finally the fire seems to be extinguished and is now under control.
It certainly is good news that the fire is being extinguished, but let's talk about one of the things that made it problematic to begin with, even for firefighters that were in that building. The fire hydrants, they struggled with water pressure. Rand Water had to be called in. When was the last time that a fire drill, firstly, was done in this building?
I am unfortunately not privy to when the fire drill was made in the building. But as you know, it is part of Occupational Health Safety Act that compels the head of departments and any organization that has got human beings working in it to have fire drills and ensure that everybody is aware about occupational health and safety in terms of the law. But I'm delighted, Cathy, that all employees of Department of Health, of Human Settlement, of Cooperative Governance, 1,100 plus of them were evacuated safely, all of them, out of the building, except one employee who inhaled the smoke from the 24th floor when she was finally evacuated.
Yeah, but MEC, if your report is anything to go by, those employees should have not been in that building to begin with. 21% compliance is barely complying.
Well, it is the provincial government that took an initiative, as it is always doing. Every year, the provincial government embarks on a program of just checking the structural conditions of the building.
But you were told in 2014 about this problem, MEC. 2014, how a staged protest outside this very building telling the state that this building was not good for occupation. And so even your annual results from 2014 should have told you that there was a problem. So it's all good and well that you have, you take the initiative to hold these, to conduct these reports. But what have you been doing with the information from 2014 to 2018?
No, definitely. The information was made available to government in 2014. If there is any time that the scientists emphatically said that parts of this building are not conducive for human occupation, for workers, it is the report that the Premier received just last Friday.
So since 2014, are you telling me that none of your officials had bothered to go into this building, conduct a report? What have the other annual reports been saying? Surely the deterioration has not happened in the last year.
Not all of the building was declared not that safe. Parts of the buildings were declared that definitely these floors, you cannot get people into it. It's about 7 floors. And Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, as early as last year, removed almost workers that were working in about 4 or 5 floors of this building to diagonal street building. That was part of the process, and that's why the Premier then commissioned through Department of Infrastructure Development, MEC Mamabolo, that the matter of identifying suitable buildings should be put on public tender so that we can get down to the business of identifying suitable buildings so that we can remove the people.
MEC, had you ever been in this building?
I have. I'm working in this building.
And precisely. So since you have worked in this building, how many times have you been part of a fire drill that was conducted?
Well, since I came here in May, there was never, in the first week of April, there was never the fire drill that I'm aware about.
What was the water pressure like? Were you not concerned about the kind of water that this building was receiving?
I am not a technical person. This is the job that really belongs to
No, but surely it doesn't need technicians to open the tap and see whether or not the water is running sufficiently or not, MEC, with all due respect.
No, there's a Department of Infrastructure Development whose primary mandate with the technicians and the scientists that work at DID. That's their job, to really oversee that kind of a work. You wouldn't expect me to really master that kind of a work. I mean, I'm not trained in occupational safety, but the head of administration is responsible to ensure that all the provisions of Occupational Health and Safety Act are complied with. As a matter of fact, I've just left a meeting and I'm making an announcement here that the MEC of Infrastructure Development and ourselves, and we have just been briefing the Premier, that we are now saying that the Department of Infrastructure Development should not leave the issue of occupational safety health only to the departments, even if the law says so. The Department of Infrastructure Development from today is now going to take over responsibility to ensure that we coordinate all departments. As a matter of fact, he's now summoning all heads of department tomorrow at 10:30 to ensure that we begin to put into place mechanisms that should ensure that this kind of situation does not recur.
MEC, how do you justify the fact that you not only endangered your own life by coming into this building to work every day, but you endangered the lives of over 1,000 of other employees that also were subjected to working in this building?
Absolutely. When I arrived in this department, when I was appointed the MEC of Human Settlement and Cooperative Governance, one of the first things that I said...
But how do you justify it? How do you justify it?
No, but I'm saying when I arrived, just as I arrived, one of my first concern was that this building doesn't seem like it's suitable for people to work. And I saw some defects, and that's the reason the time when I started inquiring from the head of department, and my head of department said, yes, MEC, we are concerned. And then I went to the MEC of the Department of Infrastructure Development, and he said that MEC, you've got the responsibility to begin to activate your department to ensure that you budget so that I can get the building for you.
Why did you not ensure that the doors were shut when you yourself saw the danger?
No, you cannot just, shut the doors, Cathy. This is the process. We've identified the problem.
Even if it means risking lives.
No, you know what the problem is. How do you solve the problem? You've got to solve the problem. Where do you take people to? You've got to take people to buildings that have passed the quality check. And the reason why we've got to put matters into public procurement, unfortunately, the politician doesn't have power to procure, Even if I had power to, I wouldn't procure, because we've got to get the scientists to check the buildings where you are taking workers to ensure that they are not worse off than the building that you are taking them out of it. And this is a process. This process only closed last week Friday with regard to the Department of Human Settlement, which I am head of. COCTA, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, had already completed that process, and they were just about to sign the lease agreement today, and basically starting the process of procuring the furniture so that all the employees of COCTA, by the way, half of them have long been moved out of the building already. It was just the remaining workers, including the political office, that were sitting in the building to ensure that once we procure the suitable buildings, we're definitely going to move the people. The challenge has been with the Department of Health, which had not started the process of securing the budget. That's first thing. And secondly, to ensure that the Department of Infrastructure Development does the job, because it is the Department of Infrastructure Development that oversees the procurement of buildings for the entire government. And that is the reason why the MEC of Department of Infrastructure Development, MEC Mamabolo, this evening has taken a decision in consultation with all of us. The Department of Infrastructure is now going to be coordinating health and safety for the entire buildings. As a matter of fact, I've just left a meeting with the technicians that are now looking at alternative buildings where we should take the employees to, from the 8 buildings that have been identified and they are not suitable.
Sure. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this interview, but I think that there are still many questions left, because government has lots of buildings that it is currently paying for that are not occupied, whose safety and compliance standards would fare much better than the one where the MEC himself, as you've heard there, Vuyo, came to work in every day. Along with his officials, despite the fact that there were problems with this building. And as we heard, part of the reasons why it's taking so long to contain this fire has been as a result until yesterday late evening, they weren't able to get a proper water supply into that building, but Rand Water being called in to assist with that situation. So that's the state of affairs as it stands right now. And of course, like I said, there's still teams inside on the 15th and the 16th floor.